No, I just said, because if you lean, it'll, and I was already positioned right on the end
Testing.
of the
Nope.
stage.
It is on.
Testing, testing.
They're not on.
It's not on.
A slight glitch.
Test, test.
What was that?
I don't know. It's on my-
It was like school's out. Oh, for God's sake. So frustrating.
Is there a volume control?
When it is, he controls it.
Yeah. Why are they not working?
I'm getting. Unless they're unplugged somewhere.
I guess at least it's working. Oh, my
He's
God.
gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Can you say 1 foot on the piano field?
I'm gonna start banging my head against that piano. I'm telling you. It's stressing me out.
Testing.
Hey, here we go.
Okay.
There you go.
We're going to try this again.
Yes,
Apologies for the
correct.
technical difficulties. I'd like to call to order the March 21, 2023 City Council meeting. Let the record reflect that all City Council members and city officials are present or in the building. If you would please silence all devices if you have them with you. And we'll stand for invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. And please remove your hats if you have one on.
Thank you, Mayor. Samuel Adams wrote in 1772, "The right to freedom, being a gift of God Almighty, is not in the power of man to alienate this gift and voluntarily become a slave." So, Father, we come to you thanking you for the freedom that we experience here in the United States of America. Today, we are thankful that the world continues to rotate at exactly the right angle and exactly the right speed under your careful hand, that we can live and experience life on this earth. Help us to be thankful today for the little things and the large things in life. We continue to thank you for your protection and your care over this city council, over everyone in attendance, over our military overseas, those that are at home, and Father, for our first responders. We are grateful for all those that care for our safety. And we thank you for continued wisdom for this council, for each member that will be participating today, and guide each one of us through this day, that the betterment of this city and the glory to you would be our prime example. Thank you for being here with us. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. Our next meeting will be on April 19th, 2023. Is there anything on the agenda anyone would like to address or change or modify? Okay. Before we open up the floor for public comments, I have some housekeeping notes. As I have already mentioned, please silence all personal devices as this meeting is being recorded and it disrupts the proceedings when phones go off during the meeting. There's a code of conduct in the council chambers. Members of the public should familiarize themselves with the rules on the screen. That includes comments directed at council members. If you have a comment about an issue or a subject matter, that's fine, but you do not get to comment on council members. Members of the public who wish to address the council should use the guest podium at the center of the room. The podium to the right of the stage is for staff and applicant presentations only. Speak directly into the microphone and begin by stating your name for the record. If it is a quasi-judicial hearing, please also state that you've been sworn in. Each person has 3 minutes to speak, and sharing minutes is not permitted. Speakers are to direct all comments to the city council, not the audience or any one individual council member. Discussion between speakers and members of the audience is not permitted. When there are many individuals who wish to speak, speakers should try not to reiterate lengthy comments made by others to ensure an effective and efficient meeting. This ensures everyone has an opportunity to speak. Audience and speakers will be courteous in their language and presentation. No applause, sidebar conversations, or booing before, during, or after each speaker. Please refrain from talking in the audience during the meeting. If you have supporting documents you want displayed during the meeting during your comments, they must be provided to the city clerk, and these documents will become part of the permanent record and retained by the clerk's office. The citizens' comments portion of the meeting is not intended to be a question and answer session. This is for citizen comments only. Council members should refrain from answering impromptu questions or debating issues with members of the public. With that, we will open up the floor for public comments. When you come to the podium, please state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Come on, John. Come on. Up. Jesus Christ.
Good morning, my name is Dr. Deborah Lux. Do not change Fishville zoning to planned development neighborhood. No other building is similar to this request. This proposal is not compatible, and do not give any streets or parks and no encroachments. 5.94, no modification shall be approved unless the City Council finds such modification exceeds the public purpose of the existing regulation. No modification will be granted for the primary purpose of the developer achieving the maximum density on the site. 5.95, no PD plan shall be considered unless the City Council finds the proposed plan development promotes public health, safety, and welfare. This includes it must be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, and it has to adequately accommodate the anticipated traffic, including emergency vehicle access. Remember this, 6.2, 6.4, and 6.7. These regulations shall be met for each building structure as though it were on an own individual and separate lot. 4.23A, a minimum of 50% of the street level floor must be dedicated to retail use in the building to have 15 DU. 4.23B, it must be compatible with buildings within 100 feet. 3.7F1, structures can only go up to 3 stories high for residential usage. 3.7G and 5.3M, 5.96C7, building can only be 40 feet above BFE, with roof adding 10 feet, therefore a total maximum height of 60 feet. 5.3M only applies to the proposed hotel. 3.7G9, 3.8G14, maximum density is 15 DU if building meets approvals, otherwise building can only be 10 DU. 5.3U, uses shall be compatible with surrounding development. The surrounding structures have only 1 and 2 story commercial buildings and 1 to 4 story low density condo units. There is nothing similar to the proposed of a high density, oversized 80 to 100 foot apartment building proposed for this area. 6.8, setbacks for multiple structures on a single property must be 1/2 the building in height. 7.4A1, new buildings shall respect the general spacing of structures, building mass and scale, and street orientation and frontage relationship of existing buildings. 7.43C, the front building 2 lines shall be equal to the setbacks for the buildings on the same side of the street within 300 feet. Parking, again, many things wrong with this proposal, but could you imagine having on-street parking right on Marion in front of Fishville with all the accidents already occurring there? Again, do not allow the zoning change to PDN for Fishville. Punta Gorda is not an urban city. It won't work. It is your job to maintain Punta Gorda's beauty and charm while smartly developing the city. P.S. Did anyone bicycle here today?
Thank you.
I'm John Larmore. I'm the owner at Fisherman's Village and the adjacent properties, including this one where we all are today. I've acquired these properties systematically since I bought Fisherman's Village in 2012. My plan has always been to make Florida and Indiana my home. Once my children had graduated from high school, the plan was accelerated by COVID and my daughter's decision to finish high school online while training for competitive wake surfing over in Claremont, Florida, outside of Orlando. Fortunately, this has allowed me to move here sooner than I had planned. I am currently a full-time resident of Florida, living in Punta Gorda. This is my home. The city's longstanding goal of increasing the business tax base is a goal that I share. It is important to have a diverse tax base to offer the amenities that the residents and visitors of Punta Gorda deserve. Patty Allen has been holding numerous meetings over the previous year with the community organizations and with members of the public, and we've incorporated many changes into our plan based on the feedback from those meetings. Once we submitted the PD, we were surprised by the level of pushback we received. Since that time, we've been working feverishly to revise the original plan, to incorporate everything, all the comments and concerns that everyone has told us. And we want to come up with a plan that works for the city, works for the council, and works for us. I'd like to ask everybody in the community to acknowledge that we are serious about designing a project that everybody will be happy with. Large developments are very difficult. You've seen that with Punta Gorda Isles, Burnt Store Isles, Emerald Point, and now Fisherman's Village. But the result can be incredibly beneficial for the community as a whole. The numerous and inaccurate information is a force we must overcome as a community. In an attempt to answer serious questions directly, I am setting up an email address. It's going to be askjon, that's Jon, at Fisherman's Village, and that's plural, fishermansvillage.com. I'm going to ask you all to submit your questions to that email, and I will attempt to make sure they are answered correctly. This is a new trial system, and so I'm sure we'll have problems with it, but we'll give it a shot. I ask that you all include your name, your address, your residency status, and who your council representative is, along with detailed questions or concerns about the project. Provided all the information is submitted, we'll use our commercially reasonable efforts to respond. Thank you all for your time. We look forward to working with you and delivering a product that the city will be happy about and will provide the experiences that everybody deserves.
Thank you.
My name is Janine Polk, and I'd like to talk to you today about the vacating of Retta and portions of the parks. The vacating of Retta Esplanade should have been resolved prior to the Fishville submittal. Now here we are, left with a developer who thinks it's okay to include that land area in his submission as if it were a done deal. But vacating Retta Esplanade, which provides the only direct access to Sunset Breeze condominiums, will set the city up for litigation. Florida Statute Title 12, Chapter 177.101 in Section 3 specifically states, it must further be shown that the vacation by the governing body of the county or city will not affect the ownership or right of convenient access of persons owning the other parts of the subdivision. So please ask yourselves before allowing streets to be vacated, are we taking away the right of convenient access? Furthermore, about parks. There is no benefit to giving away portions of our parks, no matter how small, in order to provide developers with the area they need to squeeze their buildings in, or to get higher density, or to receive credit for green space. It absolutely negates the purpose of having the recreational and open spaces portion of our comprehensive plan. That plan clearly states the city's principal funding sources for parks and recreations are impact fees and ad valorem taxes. So, over the years, a substantial investment has been put into these parks by taxpayers. My point is, the parks should be a sacred cow in Punta Gorda, and city staff should be informing developers we just don't grant easements or give away parkland when a developer's property abuts a park. Any development should be self-contained. If they're asking for land from the city, then their density is simply too high. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Jeff Lustig. I want to commend the Code Enforcement Board for its compassion during this time for helping individuals come into compliance and not charging them exorbitant fines and fees. Our neighbors, like in Northport, I was horrified to find out that they're charging people up to $10,000 a tree. The average fines that I witnessed there were $15,000 for clearing a lot, especially when people came down. I remember right after the storm, there were major trees all over the place, and contractors came in and took away these trees because they were down. And now they're finding these individuals. It happened to a friend of mine. And you're down to 5 members, and I hope that you will vet the next applicants so that they show a compassion and a willingness to work with our residents. A lot of problem is coming because people are not getting proper amounts of money from their insurance. It seems that the independent auditors that these insurance companies hired are changing the reports. They're legally allowed to, but not to the extent that they are doing on their appraisals. And people are receiving pennies on the dollars. I received $56 for the storm damage to a lanai. I was very lucky. That was the only damage that I had. But it just was insulting the fact that the insurance company would even come and say something like that to me. Anyway, thank you for your wonderful government and organization here today.
Thank you.
Wendy Mueller. This city is really a pretty neat place to be, and it's always been fair. I'm very, very concerned about the fairness that may be coming on the April 19th meeting. I'm concerned because there's 2 sides. Obviously, you've been witnessing the 2 sides. My problem is the people that are being put upon with this plan won't have the ability to respond in a fair and reasonable amount of time. I'm hoping that there's some way to listen to one side and extend a hand to the other to be heard in a fair manner with more time than 10 days or 7 days, and more like the 30 days or 90 days that was afforded the other. Thank you.
My name is Mike Polk, and I'm here to speak as a resident in regards to the Fisherman's Village rezoning. City staff has given preliminary approval for a zoning change to office for a project that is predominantly multifamily with basically no office. The zoning change allows the developer a 200% coverage ratio versus the 55% coverage ratio allowed under general multifamily zoning. Multifamily requires a lower coverage ratio due to green spaces and amenities that are typically included in this type of development. This has necessitated Fishville to ask the city to vacate Red Esplanade and existing parkland to help provide green areas and room for amenities for their high-density development. It's apparent to anyone that goes to Fisherman's Village that there's a parking problem. Currently, patrons of Fishville park on all the sites all their sites, as well as along Red Esplanade, Marion Avenue, and Mott Street, as well as neighboring properties. The parking study that Fishville provided understated the sizes of the existing buildings, as well as not providing parking for their extensive outdoor seating. Moreover, their study did not include any type of diagram that actually showed how the spaces are laid out or what the capacities of the various parking garages were. They want us to believe that they are going to add approximately 570,000 square feet of hotel rooms, multifamily units, and retail space, and that parking issues are going to be resolved. Staff needs to be proactive in reviewing the developer's submission instead of taking their numbers and approving them without any due diligence. Fact, in the wake of COVID, outdoor seating is the new normal and has to be accounted for, or there will continue to be parking issues at the development that impact the entire neighborhood. Staff did a poor job reviewing the Fisherman's Village submittal, and the only reason it has not already been approved is due to the work of concerned citizens. We expect better from the staff. How can you justify allowing a change to office zoning for a project that you know is not proposed for office development, to merely give the developer his required density that is over 3 times what is typically allowed? No judge would reverse a zoning denial from the city for requests that is this arbitrary. I guess if you own the building, you get more than 3 minutes.
Gary Skillicorn. I was not planning to speak, but I was prompted by one of the earlier speakers today. I'm sorry he didn't stay. I seem to remember at least a year ago that this, or the council at that time was livid, that this building was in such disrepair. Fisherman's Village was put before the microphone and asked, what are you going to do about it? Well, we're going to take care of it, certainly. Yes, we have our excuses, delays, and a lot of things. So today, I look around this building from the outside. I still see plywood in the windows. I see many of the windows still vacant. I know my first question for Mr. Lermore will be on his website, what are you going to do about this building? And how is it that this sets an example of the remarkable things that you're going to do with Fisherman's Village? I'd like to make a positive statement here that actions speak louder than words, and I hope that you do recall that.
Is there anyone else that would like to address City Council on any issue? Please come forward, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name's Debbie Kudre. My question is, why would we speak about, in regards to Fisherman's Village and John that was up here, why would we speak about amenities over safety? What about the traffic? Like, why isn't that addressed? Like, why can't we speak to that more? Safety is more important to amenities. Please consider that.
My name is Gary Cloak, and I am amazed that this whole place isn't filled up, because all you have to do is drive through PGI, and all you see are signs, one after another, no Fishville. And I'm definitely with that crew, because right now, it's insane. They're trying to park, the traffic. I boated through here in 1980. Gorgeous little place. I said, one day I want to live there. And right before my eyes, it's disintegrating. And this will just be one more monstrosity like across the bridge. So please put the brakes on this. Thank you.
Pat, excuse me, Pat Niles, concerned voting resident. I'll stick to my notes today. I know after the meeting, you all went to another meeting, and this all made it into the newspaper today. I just read it this morning. And I think it's unfortunate that the governor didn't go to your second meeting. He would have made the newspapers. The concern I have here is how our newspaper editors, maybe someday I'll think of the article today as on a light side, but right now I think it's a very serious matter, and my dad was in the newspaper business his whole life, and I think you would be doing more justice to our community if you would cover stories, and I'll give you a lead story here instead of what you did this morning in our paper. And I suggest you cover the noise at Fishville and what is it going to be. We speak quite often, and the same people come up here to speak to you, just like you're the same people that are here up in front of us. And I think it's time we start coming to better resolves for what will be our community down the road. You have a lot of rules that are read at every single beginning of every Punta Gorda City Council meeting, and you do it so you keep order at our meetings. Well, that needs to be extended, and that we have good, orderly direction with regard to the noise and the building height for Fishville, and what is going to be the resolve of our community if you, as the City Council, do not address these seriously, at least those two parts of the issue of Fishville. And that what are we going to get when the tourist attraction is up and running in full gear if you don't address these now? And then just one last thought. I went back and listened to a 5-year-old City Council meeting. It was back on May 15th, 2019, and a lot of you here, right here at this meeting, were at that meeting. I can prove it. There's a video to prove it that you were there. And at that time, it was the concern at that meeting was the loud music in our downtown establishments, and what were you going to do about it? And that particular City Council decided that it should be resolved by self-police. And with who we have today dealing with the issues at Fishville, I don't believe that would be applicable here.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address council on any issue? Seeing no one rise, we'll move on. If there's anyone in the audience that has submitted a resume for a board or committee nomination, would you please come forward and introduce yourself to the council? Seeing none, we'll move along. We have no ordinances or resolutions today. The next item is consent agenda. That includes the invoice from Allen Norton and Blue, the invoice from iCard Merrill, the Florida Local Government Cybersecurity Grant Application, and the resolution for submission of the grant application for the Stormwater and Wastewater Assistance Grant Program. Does anyone have anything they'd like to pull?
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have on the regular agenda, agenda item TU-08-2023.
Good morning, Lisa Hannon, zoning official. So staff is in receipt of a temporary use application for the Peace River Wildlife Center for their 900 West Henry Street location. So it's a pre-construction trailer and fence. They're still working through their DRC process and construction plans to be approved. The trailer is to help facilitate public access and fundraising. The use of the existing parking lot for parking and of course for the dog park area. It's a 6-foot chain link fence with some screening fabric, and the gate will be about 12 feet wide. Parking again is provided in the city-owned parking lot. This would be permitted by right if they had their DRC approval and their construction plans approved with a building permit. So since they're still working through their plans, they're asking for it under a temporary use permit. These are the existing conditions. Again, these are some of the criteria. It's by right approved with an active building permit. It has 43 parking spaces, which is shared with the Hounds on Henry. has one ingress egress off of West Henry Street. The proposed trailer is just outside of their leasehold area. It's adjacent to the parking lot, but not in the parking lot. They're not utilizing that parking or taking any parking spaces for the trailer. They're not proposing any permanent alterations, which would be prohibited until they do get a valid building permit. Signs must be compliant with Section 26, or Chapter 26, Section 11.11. There's no code violations at this time, and they will be monitored by our Code Compliance Division. They would need a business tax receipt for this location. Again, 43 existing shared spaces seemed sufficient for the use. No trash and debris, that would be prohibited and monitored by our Code Compliance Division. They must provide sanitary facilities, whether it's in the trailer, they would still have to be accessible facilities. We're requesting that the applicant work with the City Utility Department on those requirements. No public right-of-way is being proposed to be used, and property owner provided a letter of authorization for the use. So these would be the conditions if council would see it appropriate to approve their temporary use permit. That sanitary facilities must be provided on site, accessible. Business tax receipt required prior to operation. Hours of operation between 10 a.m. and dusk, unless they provide temporary lighting for operations after dusk. Signs must comply with the code, and a fence permit would be required prior to installation. Urban design staff does recommend approval with the stated conditions. And they're only proposing fence along the front. They're not doing the entire perimeter at this time.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, I do. So how long is temporary use?
That's up to council. I think they're asking for it for 2 years. It's
Okay,
not
so
mine.
2 years, which I assume, and how close are they to actually construction?
I can't answer that. I know we gave them a 6-month extension while they were going through their DRC process. After Hurricane Ian, they decided to revamp the structures to elevate them for better sustainability in the future for potential flooding and the flood elevations. So they're working with their engineer and their contractor to move through with that. We've not received any revised plans at this time to address any of the deficiencies from the DRC.
I guess personally, I'm a little concerned about 2 years of temporary use without some idea of where we go.
If I could, Mayor. Just to mention that the applicant is here if you wish for them to come to the podium, answer any questions. I know they had the additional information that showed some of the engineering diagrams of what they propose and what they plan on doing in the future. So just for information.
I don't, this may be a question for the applicant, but Lisa, it said the fence permit's required prior to installation. Is that fence a requirement from the city, or is that something that the applicant's putting in?
The applicant's putting the fence in. It's going to help give them a little security. They're going to go out there and start staking the locations of where the buildings and the structures are going to go. I think they're taking a proactive approach. If they were to go out there and stake it now, people walk through that area right now from the linear park, come over from the library parking lot to access the dog park. You never know what gets removed, and I think this might help give them a little bit of security.
But correct me if I'm wrong, though, the fence just going across the front will not impede people coming off the linear park or the library or the historic park.
That is correct.
So I have some more questions, but I'll leave that for the applicant.
Okay, any other questions? I do have one question. This is very hard to read, this particular slide, but it appears to me that the trailer, the proposed location of the trailer is right on the edge of the current parking lot. I have concern of where it's going to be located because people park there right now. And when the park is full with people and dogs, that entire parking lot is just completely overwhelmed with cars. And I think that that is going to be, there's going to be people parking in front of it, which is going to completely deteriorate the purpose of having it that location. I would suggest that it go further to the west so that perhaps on the other side of what used to be the street that ran through that lot. Just because I think it would make more sense and it would be out of the way, but it would still be very visible for those that want to get to the office in the trailer. Just my suggestion. Anyone else have questions before we Would the applicant like to speak for a minute and give us a little more information?
And then I have questions.
Good morning. I'm Larry Fife with Boyett and Miller, and we'll be doing the construction hopefully when we get plans approved. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. We are real flexible on the location of the trailer.
Okay.
We don't want to, impact the dog park or any of the parking there, and there's lots of land available. So it's a walk-up trailer use. We're hoping, like I say, to do funding there and also have construction and staff meetings there. And we do want to lay out some of the facilities on site so that people can get an idea of where things are going to be in the future. So that was the purpose of the trailer as well as the fencing. And the fencing is to help us maintain a little bit of privacy to the site, but also to give us access. And so
Sure. Now, you have a proposed entrance between the sections of fencing, is that correct? It looks like there was like a gate or something?
yes, ma'am,
Is
we
that correct?
plan to put
Okay.
gates in.
12-foot gate.
Okay, well, I think for your benefit, if you want people to be able to walk up, I do think you're going to have a problem with where it's proposed to be located on this map, because I know that, I've been in that parking lot, and it is just a mob scene on a good day, and
I understand.
I don't defeat the purpose of you having it there, so,
Right.
you want to have somebody be able to walk up to the front of it, so that's why I mentioned that.
And would we be allowed to put in a temporary gravel walkway to the trailer if we,
That you would have to talk to the staff about.
Okay.
I can't answer that.
Okay.
Mr. Kowarski.
So just for clarity, I mean, the temporary use is just for, as you said, for construction purposes, fundraising, meetings, that type of thing. There's not going to be any animals or anything moved over there.
No.
So do you have a hard stop to move? And maybe it's not your question, but maybe somebody else, but is there a hard stop to move out of the current location that they are? In other words, are you going to get kicked out at some point? I mean, and what's that time frame?
well, I think Gary's better suited to answer that
Okay.
question.
I'm just trying to get an idea for what temporary is and if there's,
Hello, my name is Gary Wine, and I'm on the board for the Peace River Wildlife Center, and I must say I had a difficult time not saying aye, having served on council before. Where we're at as far as what precipitated us going to this location, the first point, is really germane to your question, Mark. A mistake was made decades ago, and our present location encroaches on some private property. The time will come that we will have to move. At this juncture, nobody's putting a gun to our head. I want to say that up front, but it's going to happen. As a city council, and several of you were there, either in the meeting or up at the dais, we looked at increasing the space in Ponce Park. And that was the initial plan. Unfortunately, it became cost prohibitive both for the city and for the Peace River Wildlife Center. We would have had to build to velocity standards. We were going to go from 4/10 of an acre to 1 acre, as I recall. And Linda will correct me, I'm sure, if I am misconstruing it. But the other time is to be able to do what we would do, the city was going to have to upgrade the property, including water mains, et cetera, to the tune of somehow $250 to plus dollars and so forth. So it was deemed that we should look for a different location. It was at that point, Peace River Wildlife did look at other locations outside of the city of Punta Gorda. This has been an asset of Punta Gorda for many, many decades and wants to remain there. Then we, as a council at that time, offered this property as the potential for the New Life Center. The Peace River Wildlife Center accepted that, and we're going forward. Now, we've had our fits and starts, and I make no apologies. We were a ma and pa organization. You will be being solicited to have presentations from us in about 4 weeks individually, where we'll be showing you our plans, our strategic plans, et cetera. We are quickly evolving into a serious, much larger organization, because we're going to be literally expanding our footprint by 10 to answer that. So are we going to have temporary use for 2 years? I would be really surprised. We have money in the bank as we speak right now to start turning dirt. We're waiting on the final reapproval of the Swift Mud permit, which should be something less than 6 months on the long end, But we're expecting, since it's not a big change, hopefully that it'll be a little bit quicker. And then we're ready to start turning dirt. We will be raising this property, instead of the 6 feet that was initially proposed in our initial plan, to 9 feet. We're looking for a 100-year project. We'll be investing approximately somewhere between $750 and $1 million to make the total property suitable for a 100-year build. We have that money in the bank right now. In our worst-case scenario, and I say this because this is not what's going to happen, but in our worst-case scenario, we can't run the funds, we have to pack up, we have to close shop, and the city has got $1 million invested into a piece of property that becomes yours. That's the worst-case scenario. The best-case scenario is we're going to have a wonderful asset for that in conjunction with the city to provide wonderful context for our children, our grandchildren, for us, for the many volunteers that get involved in the Peace River Wildlife Center, and all the good work that it's done. It's been an incredible ruby, I want to say, for the community, and we plan to be the big diamond, the crown jewel, if you will. So I hope that answers your question.
More than answers my question.
Okay, Mark.
Oh, that's everything I needed to know. Thank
Mark,
you.
you know me. I'm never at a loss for words. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have a 100-year build for a 50-year lease, you know. Just kidding.
That's not 3 minutes,
yeah,
sorry.
doubtful.
That's a different situation.
Very
Go ahead,
doubtful.
Bill.
Well, moving that trailer obviously took care of my main concerns. I just think it's an outstanding project. I've been out there. If you haven't been, you need to go see it. And I think it'd be a gem in the city of Punta Gorda to have that there. I'm very impressed with it.
Melissa?
I don't have any problem with the temporary trailer. I know what you're trying to achieve as far as bringing people in, saying, here's our concept, this is how it's going to look, and I think that's great. I have concerns with the fence. I think that the 6-foot fence is a little bit of an eyesore if you're not ready to turn dirt yet. I kind of think from a security point, you're going to have your trailer in front of it. I know you're trying to maybe secure the property, but going to the dog park myself, people access the back part of that property from every other which way, linear park, history park, the library, so it's not really going to secure anything. I'm not in favor of putting that fence up at all. I just don't think it's necessary.
Can I just ask for a little clarification on the ground lease? Because the documentation we had in our package talks about, it was signed in 2020, 2020, and it says that you need to have phase 1 done by 2023. We're in 2023. Then I heard there's a 2024 extension, but I haven't seen anything to that effect, and that you guys may be looking for another extension. So can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, it's my understanding that when this issue came up, we went back to staff and met with some people in staff, and they did clarify that it is 2024, our extension at this juncture, and that, yes, once we turn dirt and so forth and show you how real we are, we will possibly be asked to have another extension as you see the building goes up, because we may not get it done in time.
I think that the real issue is, well, there's a couple of things. The property adjacent to Ponce Park was purchased by a new company about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and the intent is for them to build 190 condos on that site. Currently, the Peace River Wildlife Center is on a portion of their property. While it's not buildable area of their property, the problem exists that they are still on that property. So there is some sense of urgency to get them moved out of Ponce Park. And we won't do any further renovations in the park until everything is cleared out and they've moved to their new location, and we can proceed and reestablish our own boundary lines. But this was a citizen-driven initiative several years ago that came before council back when Mr. Wine was on council. And it was unanimously approved by the council that we move them to this parcel. As you may remember, for those who have been around for a few years, there was a big proposal to build a lot of townhouse-style condo units on that same parcel on Henry Street, which was denied by the council.
And for that, I apologize for bringing forward.
Well, so, I mean, that was a massive amount of be careful. That was a massive amount of residential units that ended up being not well received to the council. So at the part where we decided that moving the dog park borders a little bit further to the north so we could expand our own dog park and then incorporate the Peace River Wildlife Center, it was to create kind of a cultural hub in that part of the city between, you've got History Park, you've got the museum here, and you've got
Visual arts.
yeah, the dog park, you've got all kinds of things, visual arts center, and then this would be an additional venue for cultural activities in the community. And so it was very well received, and that's how this all came about. So I think it's a great project. I would love to see it move forward sooner than later. I know you are a little bit bound by finances, and that's understandable in this complete weird climate that we're living in. They had to also purchase the building on MLK Boulevard to use as their surgery center a couple of years ago because the surgery center out at Ponce Park was completely disintegrating. So they've done the best they could. They also had those funds available at that time, which will now eventually be probably folded into this project. That's kind of the overview of what has happened up to this point. And I encourage you to keep going forward, and it's going to be wonderful when the facility is done. You are a gem to the community. You are a huge asset. You have helped thousands and thousands of people with animals and strays that have come about, or people that find animals on the roadside. So it's a wonderful, wonderful venue for the city. And we certainly want to keep you in the city. So I think that's kind of an important thing too. As far as the fence, I don't have a problem with it. I think partially separating it from the other parts of that area of the park would probably be beneficial. Mark?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't see a problem if they're willing to pay for it, if they want it. I don't think they need it. I agree that they don't need it, but I could see the benefit of it, so I have no problem with it.
Okay. And again, if you are willing to work with the city on relocating that trailer to a little bit less invasive space, I'm real concerned for you guys because I know your intent is to be able to get people to come to the trailer to learn about the facility and make donations and all of that wonderful stuff. So if you could work with city staff on that, that would be great.
I can confer. I have Trish LaPointe, our director, is here. She's confirmed. Our builder, Bob Millers, is here. And yes, we will accommodate with staff and work at finding a less intrusive location for the trailer.
Could I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Just a couple questions since you're here.
Hi.
I'll put on my warrior hat for a moment. So when you put up the fence, the concept plan shows from Linear Parkway up that along the back of the pumping station, ultimately there's a right-of-way, for lack of a better term, so the public can still get from back there to the front and over to the dog park. Many people come that way to go to the dog park. Are you intending to put the fence to fence so that it's completely blocked? Because if so, then there'll be no access around the side unless they go around the back of the pumping station. And I'm just worried about our liability when people start doing that.
Okay. I think for the short term, the answer is yes. I think for the long term, there's something we'd like to discuss with you because that right-of-way would makes it's an issue that would like to work out with you. Makes bindings phase 2 to phase 1 a little bit of a challenge.
A little bit more difficult, but that's what was shown on here, concept plan. That's why I
Yeah,
asked.
we had a different map that showed a little bit different, so we'll work with you. You know, this is a non-adversarial situation here, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that.
Everybody wants this to happen.
The other thing is when you talk about moving the trailer and you indicated you would build a path, so that path, then you're amenable to having an accessible path to the trailer wherever it may be.
Okay.
I know on the edge of the pavement, it's much easier to have accessibility for handicap accessibility, et cetera, so that path would accommodate that wherever you move the trailer.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm asking rhetorical questions just for the record.
Yeah.
So, and third, as was stated, the fence will block off the front, but there are tremendous amount of people coming the other direction. So if you begin to stake off in the field, will that be highly visible and clearly marked so we don't have people coming onto city property tripping and have a liability issue that we end up getting sued because there's stakes in the ground that they didn't see?
Yes.
One last question from me. The trailer that you're bringing in, is that going to have facilities? Because there's going to be people working in that trailer, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that will have some sort of facilities? bathroom facilities?
Huh? Yes, please.
Yeah. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name's Bob Miller of Boyette Miller Construction. So to get back to the fence, I heard that the trailer will be behind the fence. It won't be in front of the fence.
That's the way it's pictured.
Well, and I don't know what the notes say, but I can tell you what we're planning on doing. Moving it down, away from the ballpark, the dog hound park. That's not a problem. To answer a question about a gate, we would be more than willing to put in a man gate in the existing dog gate fenced area, if that would satisfy the walkers coming through. That way, our fence is independent. They could have that if city council, which we would go through the system, but that's an option.
Lisa, do you have the last slide in the presentation? Just to show you what I was talking about specifically.
In our presentation,
Yep. The one that just has pretty green and yellow and white colors.
no, I don't have that in the presentation, I don't think, no.
Oh, you want the site plan?
No, it was like their lease area
It was,
that we had, I don't.
This one?
This plan, I'm sure you can see that from that distance, but it just shows that green right of way up along the master pumping station that accesses the parking lot and the trail. That's why I asked.
Okay. Well, we could clear that up, but the concept is to have the trailer behind the fence, have a gate for us behind the fence. I understand people walking from the other side as far as staking out where the future exhibits would be. They're going to be like a survey stake that you all have seen. It's a 1x3 stake. It's going to have ribbons on it, orange. The stake itself will be painted either an orange or a yellow color. We will not have ribbons going all the way around it so somebody could fall and trip through it, not unless we're having a special event. Then we would put temporary ribbons up, take them back down.
Which would be a good idea.
But we would like to say if it's an octagon, we would like to put the stakes in every corner to sort of show how big it is. And so they can write up some type of brochure to help facilitate the funds for the future of this. And that's our concept.
The stakes have to be visible so the dogs can find them because they.
Well, actually for that, we would like to come
New
through.
fire hydrant, so.
Yes, so there's a bunch of underbrush underneath of all the trees that are about 6 to 8 foot high that you can't see anywhere. You know, one of our goals would be go in and not do anything to the trees except clear out the dead branches and get underneath all the underbrush so people can really visualize how beautiful that piece of property is. Right now, it's full of dead debris, it's full of trash, and we want to clean it up, put these stakes in, and really show the potential that this property has.
Mayor, in the lease, there is a provision that requires that during the, all times during the term of the lease, that the lessee maintain insurance on the premises. Do you have that insurance already in place?
We'll get back to you. I can't answer that directly.
That certainly would alleviate some of the concerns about the potential liability.
I will tell you that if we don't have, we will correct that quite quickly.
Thank you.
And also, you will be maintaining the property after you sort of take possession of it, as far as maintaining, keeping the lawn cut and all of that sort of thing until the buildings are built?
Yes.
Well, one of the questions, since you brought that up, one of the questions was, when I talked about the green area that's on this little site plan, we still have people routinely that mow the inside and the perimeter of our master pump station. So if the gate goes the whole way to the building, then that becomes more of a challenge for them to get around and mow the strips that they're required to mow. So.
I have more concerns now. I really want to get this right, and I don't mean to be argumentative. I'm 100% for this project, but first I'm hearing design shows the trailer's outside the fence. Nope, now it's going to be in the fence. Do you have insurance? Nope, I'm not sure we have insurance, but we will get it. I don't feel comfortable approving this project until we have all of our ducks in a row. I think we need to see that insurance. We need to make sure exactly where everything's going to be staked. I still think this fence is going to be a problem because now you're going to have people coming from other areas. They're going to have to come around our pumping station, and there could be some liability there. And if you allow them to come through your fence, then what's the point of having that? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why you have a fence that you're gonna have a gate that people are gonna be able to walk through, and you might have stakes. So, again, I don't wanna seem argumentative, but I think we need to give this a little more thought, and I think we need more information before I would be willing to approve this. And insurance, I think, is the most thing that I need to see that it's in place before I would approve this project.
Well, we can make that a condition of approval.
Yes, yes.
We'll just eliminate the fence. We'll just put the trailer up.
Okay.
Okay? And as far as insurance goes, we will be in contact with you and let you know exactly where we're at within the next 2 weeks, if not sooner, as soon as we can make some phone calls and make arrangements to have the insurance done as quickly as possible, if it does not exist. If it does exist, we'll let you know later this afternoon or tomorrow.
And that's fine, yeah.
Okay? All right.
We just want to put a sign up that says, "For trip and falls, call Mr. Wine." That's all.
No, it's Ask Gary.
Ask Gary.
Yeah.
We'll do
No,
that,
don't
too.
do that, because that is an actual phone number, so don't do that.
So I would be willing to make a motion that, that we would approve this project without the fence, moving the trailer in a more amicable space, and the project cannot start until proof of insurance has been given to the city.
There are other staff recommended conditions of approval. Would you like to include
And also
those?
with staff recommended conditions.
And if we could add just one, that any pathway to the trailer at the new location has to be ADA accessible.
Yes.
So moved.
That's part of staff
Yes.
approval.
I'll second that with all the different amenities that go along with that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to move forward on the Peace River Wildlife Center site plan with conditions as stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. We wish you much luck. Keep us posted on the goings-on. We're very excited about that. Okay. Next, we have the award of amendment number 1 to Wharton Smith, Inc. of Fort Myers, Florida, to establish the guaranteed maximum price and completion time for construction of improvements at the city's wastewater treatment facility. Thank you, Bob.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Anna Heinen, Procurement, for the record. Before you, you have a award of amendment number 1 to Wharton Smith for, which establishes the guaranteed maximum price, known as the GMP, and completion time for the construction of the improvements at the wastewater treatment facility. Phase 1 in the initial agreement was initially approved by council in March of 2022 for phase 1 of the project. During phase 1, the contractor was obtaining cost estimates through the different design levels, value engineering, and the bidding process to establish the GMP. Procurement, city staff, and Wharton Smith finalized the bidding process and negotiation process for establishing the GMP. The GMP has been arrived at $70,731,689. The agreement, per the agreement, the GMP will be added to the initial agreement via amendment by approval by City Council. The amendment also establishes within the GMP a lump sum cost for the contractor. All individual costs for this fee were negotiated by both parties, the city and the contractor, and they were determined to be a lump sum that will be spread over the 42 months of construction. Any cost overruns will be the risk of the contractor. The timeline for completion of the project is 42 months after the issuance of the notice to proceed. The notice will be released upon the city's receipt of the performance and payment bonds, insurance certificates from Wharton Smith and the subcontractors, and approval of the loan agreement with SRF. The city also obtained the city's consultant's review of the GMP, and in the packet there is a letter from the consultant that it indicates that the cost is fair and reasonable. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of Amendment Number 1 to Wharton Smith of Fort Myers, Florida.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Are you, okay.
Go ahead.
But you first if you have
No.
questions. I wanted to reiterate what we're looking at here. When we look at the guaranteed maximum price, we originally had an estimate that was higher than this. We worked tirelessly almost. I have to give credit to our utilities department, our engineering firm, our procurement, everyone that's worked on this to get that cost down. Everything from pilings that are required underneath the tankage to the processes itself. So what we now have is we have a guaranteed maximum price plus some additional construction cost, et cetera, that will probably be somewhere just south total of 74 million as opposed to the 81. We also have a treatment facility that when completed is currently rated at 4 million gallons per day. That rating does not change. When you look at the calculations of growth and flow projections in the city, the capacity of that facility, and there's others that can much more eloquently speak to this than myself. I see them sitting in the audience waiting for me to misspeak, so you can jump up if I do. But the capacity, when we do our capacity analysis, is good through approximately 2038, I believe it is. And when we look at that, when we get within a 10-year window of our capacity, then a 5-year window of our capacity analysis, when it exceeds 75% of what the plant's rated for, that then gives us statutory requirements that we have to go back and reevaluate plant capacities, begin an upgrade process, et cetera. At this point, we're looking at increasing the plant processes so that it can handle the amount of flow that comes in during stormwater events, during peak flow events. It can process it as opposed to diverting it to a pond that retains the wastewater and then it treats it when the flow goes down. We're looking at improving the effluent quality of the wastewater treatment plant. It goes down a very deep hole, but at some point it really positions us so that we can get enhanced treatment from that facility. So it does everything we need to position us for the future, as well as position us so that as we pay off the debt for this upgrade to the facility, to make it function as it was currently intended at 4 million gallons per day, that we have an opportunity to work on our systems and tighten up some of the pipings and some of the things that we know, pumping stations, open areas that cause inflow and infiltration, that as that peaking factor comes down, allows us then to use that plant more efficiently and look at ratings in the future as we get closer to that 2038 date or any subsequent or dates before that that require us to look at plant capacities. So at this point, we have a 100% plans guaranteed maximum price. We know what we're dealing with. It's much less than we originally anticipated. A lot of work went into that. And when we're finished, we will have a treatment facility that in our planning horizon is a facility that can not only handle what we need to handle today with our peaking factors, et cetera, net of something like a Hurricane Ian, but also as we look into the future, positions us so that as we get close to those horizons where the state requirements require us to begin looking well into the future, past the 2038, we're positioned so that we can do that cost effectively and efficiently, where we have certain debts that we will now incur that are paid off, and we're ready to move forward as that plant ages out and requires us to take additional measures. That's the nutshell.
Did you have questions?
I did not.
You did not? Okay. Okay.
I believe all that's correct, is generally.
Move to approve award amendment 1 to Wharton Smith.
Second.
We have a motion and 2 seconds to approve the contract for Wharton Smith for the wastewater treatment plant expansion project. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next, we have operational impacts from Hurricane Ian.
I will just mention also that along with the operational impacts, the impacts of the treatment plant upgrade that you see in our capital budget have already in our 5-year plan been calculated, and what you've seen in the past year is the rate increases that you will see again as we discuss these kind of projects moving forward. So anticipated and still in there as per capital budget.
Good morning. For the record, Joan LeBeau, Urban Design Director, and I am up first. So let's take a look. We were severely impacted by Hurricane Ian, and we have learned quite a bit about our staff and the ability they have to improve things on the fly. So in looking at the permits first, roofs themselves, just in February 2022, were 35 permits being issued. In February 2023, they jumped to 460. That's just 1 month. Screen enclosures in 2022 were 10. February 2023, they jumped to 82. The total permits, that's every permit that we take in, went from February 2022, 483, to a total of 1,027. With a small staff, we have quickly learned to reassign everybody and made improvements to our processes as we move forward. The contractor licensing, in February 2022, we had a total of 25 contractors sign up. In February 2023, we had 107. Years to date, we went from 2022, 149, to 2023, 460. This is a time frame from 10/1/2022 to current date. Screen enclosures from 95 for a total for the year to date in 2022 to 2023, 251. Total permits in 2022 were 2,591. We went up to 3,882. Contractor licensing alone, roofing licenses issued in 2022 were 158. We are now up to 556. New licenses for all disciplines in 2022 were 250. They are, for the total year-to-date 2023, 780. So this really tasked the team with their patients, and they had to sort of maneuver through the onslaught of paperwork, because all of our permitting is not online yet. We are still working to get our permitting online so the contractors can apply and not have to do everything we do right now is all paperwork. So improving internally, we looked at our website and how we were taking things in from the public, and there were some confusing things out there on the website. We've improved those, changed those so that they're going to the proper sections. The permits, when they were being the contractors, when they were calling in, were going to 4 different email addresses. We have identified those and properly contacted all of the contractors, indicating where license questions go to, where permitting questions go to. So we hope we have helped the public understand better, give them the number to reach the right person at the right time. Permitting processes, we've streamlined and improved the re-roofing processing by allowing 1- and 2-family re-roofs that replace in-like kind service materials on existing roofs. We allow over-the-counter permits to be issued after the fees are paid for, and we also now allow 2 inspections to be scheduled for the same day, which helps the contractor greatly. They can do both dry-in and then a progress and final inspection. Staffing, we have hired contractual services since day 1 after the hurricane. Within 24 hours after the hurricane, we actually had damage assessment contractors out there with our city staff reviewing all of the sites, and within 4 days, we had just about the entire city assessed with the damage that was done. We've hired a plans examiner to assist contractually when we get backed up. An inspector has also been hired to assist our inspectors in trying to meet the demand that has been increased. permanent staff. We had hired one additional permit tech just before the storm started, so she was in training when the storm hit. After that, we hired a temporary permit tech to assist, and we are adding another temporary position just for filing purposes, because again, everything is paper in our department, and we just have tons of paperwork as the picture shows up there. And we are also looking at hiring a new position for the new processing programs that we are planning to implement. Online permitting, the services that allow contractors to enter their permits online are being worked out with IT right now. We hope to have that by the end of the summer. Purchase of a queue list program that will assist in queuing the customers in the lobby. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to come in when they've been out the front door, but we have made arrangements to have them call in, and actually they'll be able to pick a time to come in, and then they'll be in the queue. They can come in. It will help them in their work. They're not waiting an hour in line or longer and not being able to work. So we hope that that will assist them. It also will help us in the future when we go to do our reports. The reporting will be a lot easier. It groups everything together. We don't have to input manually. So it should be it should work very well for us. The Department of Business and Professional Regulation, we have been working with them to make sure that the contractors that are in the city are licensed. They've done a couple of surprise sweeps. They recently caught an unlicensed contractor in Buttonwood and made arrangements for him to become licensed in the city. The third floor City Hall Annex, the scope has been submitted, so hopefully our urban design department and the city manager's office can return once the work is completed up there for the renovations that need to be done after the storm. We have, on the second floor, we have a new kiosk being installed to serve the customers. It will make it a little easier for them. It's a iPad that they'll be able to manually touch. And make it easier. They don't have to go through the system that we have currently. It's a little bit harder to maneuver. The monitors are being installed for the queuing system, and then we have some additional furniture being installed so that people can sit instead of stand in the line. There was significant tree loss in the city. We are working with several groups to apply for grants that we hope will help replace what we've lost. The first group will be from the District 1 historical area. They will be working with us, with the city, to do the first Arbor Day in a while. So we'll have that proclamation at the April 19th meeting, and the actual planting of the trees will be on April 28th. More to come on that. I think then after that, we are looking to do something with a scope. I'm looking to write a scope to hire somebody to come through and prune the trees that are still remaining in the city areas, city parks, city facilities. Those that were left still need additional care, and I hope to get that done within the next few weeks. In addition, Code Compliance has been sending out courtesy letters to the vacant properties for the work that has not been done on any of those properties. So,
If I could just mention that with our building permits and staffing requirements, when the hurricane hit, of course, as Joan said, we had one staff that had just started, but we actually ramped up our staffing to handle the onslaught of permits that came in. But what we've seen is not only did that come in, but then as materials started becoming available, which of course you can see even in the recent week that more and more materials being delivered in the neighborhoods, and as insurance money started to come in, we've had a second wave. So even though we had a wave, we ramped up to try to meet the demand, we've had a second wave. You can only ramp up so much without being in another building. But we're still, I believe our general time frame is 5 to 7 days when a permit's submitted for a roof, for example. So we're still moving things forward. It's not as quickly issued as it was prior to the hurricane, but we're certainly have ramped up and continue to so we can meet the demands.
And in checking with some of the other counties and municipalities, we are doing quite well compared to some of the other areas. We are in touch with Lee County, City of Fort Myers, Charlotte County, and the City of Sarasota.
Joe, I have a quick question. With regard to the code compliance courtesy letters, those property owners that don't live in the city, that have vacant properties, and they have downed trees and other things on their properties, are we going to be able to obtain someone who can come in and take the debris away at the owner's expense? Because there's going to be a lot of those. I know that there's a lot of properties that still have a lot of debris and downed trees and other things on those vacant properties.
I'll let Lisa speak to that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Lisa Hannon, zoning official. So we're starting with the courtesy letters. That's our first order of, item to get their attention. If we've given them a certain amount of days, most of them are like 30 days. We give them 30 days because, like you said, a lot of them are out-of-town property owners. If they don't come into compliance, and we start the code violation process, notice of violation, notice of hearing, then it goes to the code enforcement board. The code enforcement board could give them additional time, or they could order that we do a distressed property, go in and clear it, and lien the property, the cost of clearing. But as far as we would have to go out for bid on, we have a distressed property contractor that does mowing and trimming of properties that don't get taken care of, that they're under our distressed properties now. This would require a different contract, I would think, because of removing large debris like that. So, it's something, it's going to have to go through the proper process first before we get to that point.
And this is more of a public works discussion because we have that coming up also. We already have a contractor that's really in the process of starting to get some of this done, because with many of these debris piles, we can't let a large pile of debris wait until August to remove because of all the nuances that surround that. So that's coming up also.
So that was really my question. If a property owner does actually have the debris hauled out to the curb, how are we going to get that removed? Do we have arrangements?
Public Works.
Okay. Well, then I'll wait for Public Works. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Joan so far? Okay, thank you.
It's a good summary.
Yeah. Nobody realizes how much work is actually involved behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Brian Clemens, Public Works. So let's just go right into the question about the debris. We did bring in a.
I'll have to flip the slide.
Oh, let's see. Where's wrong way? There we go. It's not on there, but we'll continue on. So we have brought in a contractor to pick up some of these miscellaneous piles that are either C&D type things that we don't handle, and the larger piles that are just too much for city staff. So that's underway. Started
And we're
yesterday.
going to be billing those property owners at this point?
We're going to be looking at liens on property and what we can do for that. That starts this week.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's underway. Also, canal cleanup. So thankfully, the state of Florida allowed us to be added to the Charlotte County mission to get that done, and it started last Thursday. They're underway. So there hasn't been a lot of communication yet. I'm trying to coordinate and get more updates and understand how this process is going to work. It's my understanding that they're having regular meetings with Charlotte County, and I'm going to either try to get on those conference calls, or if we can get some set up on our own. So at least I can report that that's underway.
You can see in the weekly that went out, there's some pictures of how they were operating at Ponce Park, and half of the boat ramp was still open while the other half was taken up by the debris removal. So it's working well, getting a lot of things out of the canals.
Yes, they were actually running 2 barges.
Yep.
So, the big one, seawalls. So getting closer. The replacement contractor bid opening will be today. So we'll be moving forward with that. And the project management bid deadline is April 10th. That currently, we're manufacturing 100 panels per week. By mid-April, we plan to have 1,050 panels on the grounds there at Public Works, and that'll pretty much fill up our yard. So we'll have a good head start when we can get the contractors rolled in to start installing those. Street lights, I know we have a lot of street lights out. We have been communicating in-house. We're working on getting all the scopes written so we can get those underway. I met with staff this morning and we're discussing some of those. It's my understanding, and I'm gonna have a follow-up to make sure that this is gonna happen along US 41 and US 17. DOT is gonna be taking care of those repairs. I need to iron out all the details of that, but that's what's been indicated thus far, and there we're going to be working with the FHWA on that.
And we still have some that we're waiting for parts, and then, of course, we have to have them scheduled to install. So, for example, the top of the parking deck at Harold Court Center at night, there are no lights. So, I mean, it's very dark, and we're still working on getting everything so that can be repaired.
The city manager and I also spoke with our FPL representative the other day, and she had explained to us that there is so much devastation south of us from all of the infrastructure that was wiped out from the hurricane, that they focused their efforts on doing all of those communities that needed to at least get some kind of power restored down there. And that our streetlights were next on the list, but probably not till mid to late spring would they all be back in service for the FPL.
Yes, I've had that coordination with them also. So I think they're coming. It's just a matter of when they can get here and what logistics issues they may have also.
Yeah, and she said if there's particular situations, and this goes for all the council members, if you get an email from a resident and it's a very critical safety issue because the lights are out, please report those locations to me, and I'll make sure that they get to her, because I'm sending her compiling a list of all the locations that people have reported that are safety issues more than anything. There's one in particular right in the bird section at the corner of Albatross and Bell Harbor, very dark corner, and it's on a curve, and if somebody makes a wrong turn, they're going right in the canal because there's nothing between the street and the canal, and there's no lights on at night, and it's very dark down there.
We're constantly inputting those into their system also, and we've had direct communication on that area with our contact.
She also said that they actually have small areas where they're still replacing poles to restore power.
Yes, that's right.
So, I mean, that's, it's not just having power on and upgrading everything, it's actually replacing.
The number one complaint that I'm getting is on Marion. I think it's our issue because we got that wall collapse that's covered up.
The one that has the electric under the wall collapse and waiting for the.
But I hear about it every week from somebody.
And that's an issue for us too.
Yeah.
That's the lights along that stretch.
Please continue.
And then the other one, and this one's become a kind of a hot topic lately, is the street signs. We're continuing, we're installing those pretty much every day, the ones we have on hand. There are some issues getting the signs. We have all the poles, we have brackets. We just proofed another order of the signs, so I do not have an exact time, but as we receive them, we're installing those. We've left those signs on the ground where we have them, just to provide some kind of identification in those areas. And many people think that they can just go back, place them on top of the pole, but there's a set screw in there. It's kind of to prevent it from being tampered with, and it often causes damage to the sign when you start trying to remove it. So generally, it's a new sign going up on those. So it's not as simple as just placing that back on top of the pole. And if, it's not, another thing, we of course, engineering, we are short on staff. We're hoping to get some applicants in there, get some positions filled, and hoping to get Mark Gehring on board to help with a few things. So that's kind of an overview. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments.
We put street signs on there twice because it's very important.
I caught that today.
And we had, over 1,000 signs. I mean, we have a lot of signs that had to go back up, and it's, a matter of getting the parts, getting the material, replacing, even though they look good, replacing them in kind, and moving from the most critical outward. So every day out there working at it.
Yeah, and there's definitely delays in getting those signs. I guess that's,
Mark?
everybody needs those.
So I'm getting a lot of questions and comments. You know, a lot of people had their personal docks and lifts damaged, destroyed, and need to be replaced. And I'm hearing comments that it's taking a very long time to get permitting and stuff through the Canal Advisory Committee. Do you have any comment on that?
So I haven't had it, there's a couple that we have, that we're working through, but I don't know of any that have came in as far as hurricane damage to us.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
That may be one of the contractor things also. Many times contractors say we're waiting on the permit. They haven't quite got to submitting.
Yeah, unless it's
yet, so.
you know, Mark, unless it's a special permit, it's not coming through the Canal Advisory Board.
Well, no, I'm talking about special permits. I've heard that special permits are taking a long time to get processed.
Just regular
There.
permits, like roofs and pool cages are
I
taking
should
2
have been
weeks.
clarified that
Yeah.
my understanding is that there's a backlog of special permits, and that we haven't had special permits at Canal Advisory meetings recently, not because they haven't been submitted, but because they haven't gotten to a point where they could go to the committee.
Yeah.
There are three, I believe I have three that two are ready to go to advertisement, and one we're back and forth on addressing
Right, well,
comments.
It's not doesn't sound like it's as big an issue as I was led to believe, so, okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Good afternoon. Neil Peters, the Utilities Director. Our facility is impacted from the storm. The fire department personnel and police department personnel can tell you that the roof on the building at the water plant they were staying in ripped off, and they got rained on.
I was in the building, I could attest to that, yes.
So you got to enjoy it as well.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, that happens, that roof rips off during every storm, it seems like. The water plant, the surface, that would be the surface water plant building, had roof damage. The filter building also had roof damage. That roof ripped off, which pulled down a lot of the screening around the filters. They've since put up temporary tarps. Inside the filters, that is finished water, and it has to be protected so birds can't fly in and do bad things in there. So we have a rec in now to have the screen repaired. The biggest damage to the new RO plant would be the degasifier, which sits out back. The stack blew off from that. And we're looking at manufacturer's defects in that to have that replaced. The wastewater treatment plant on Vermont Road had minor damage. A couple bay doors were smashed from flying debris. The booster station on East Henry had minor damage. And the MPF by the dog park had minor damage plus fence damage. And that's a rec's been put in to have that fence repaired and replaced. Probably the biggest damage to our facilities was the admin building on Cooper Street. It started right over my office. It ripped the roof off and peeled it back about half the building. And they put temporary roof on, and the next rainstorm, it rained in my office. So, but that's been taken care of since.
Not sure what the problem was, but that's
We have the admin group is working out of portables out front, and wastewater collections and water distribution are working out of their shops. The biggest damage, well, when it ripped the roof off, it ripped all the AC units that were on the roof off. So about 3 or 4 units in the back have AC. So there's also a rec been put in to have the AC replaced, and the condensing units are going to be put on the ground this time instead of up on the roof. And then for the chlorine conversion, we were asked by the Regional Water Authority, all their water providers that connect to their system were asked to do the chlorine conversion. We have 2 connections, and they are godsends, because an old utility director told me that every time we had a water main break and didn't have another source of water, they got really, really nervous. So it's nice to have that connection to the water authority. And they asked us to do it, and we were more than happy to do it. All it is the way we usually treat water is with chlorine and ammonia, which makes chloramines. Now what we're doing is just straight chlorine. And it's a great disinfectant. It's just going to go through and disinfect everything. I've heard from people that they are getting a sense of stronger chlorine in their water, in their tap water, but there's no danger in it. The plan is out. They test over 300 locations a month for chlorine residual. They do 10 BAC-T tests a week. So the water is perfectly safe to drink. Any questions?
Questions?
I'll just say we put something out before that when we talk about parts per million that they're using for chlorine, and I mean, you used to use that exclusively, but 1 part per million is like 1 inch in 16 miles. So it's a very little bit. And when we're talking just, a handful of parts per million and less, there's not only a danger. You don't have to worry about clothes being stained. You don't have to worry about pets drinking it, people drinking it, cooking with it, unless you're a bacteria or an amoeba that's swimming in it for a long time, you're pretty safe. So, and it's regulated by the state. We did that because part of our funding for the RO plant was an interconnection with other systems. And with everyone else doing that, if we did not, we would have to close that connection. And not only would we not have our redundancy, but neither would they. So it's not only a safety practice, but a functional practice to make sure everyone did it at the same time and we keep our redundancy operational.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we have finance.
Good afternoon, Kristen Simeone, Finance Director. So we do want to give you an update on our FEMA progress. Finance is continuing to meet with FEMA weekly on Fridays. Our HR risk manager also, risk coordinator attends those meetings as well as GIS and Public Works, especially Kathy Miller to go over seawalls at every single meeting. At every meeting, they ask us for something additional, so we have continued to provide that information, again, with the assistance of Todd Heltz and IT. Then going on to our contracted services provider availability. So again, as there is a need throughout the state, and especially in Southwest Florida, trade contracts such as roof, electrical, concrete, plumbing, and et cetera, we're having difficulty getting quotes and responses to bids due to that availability because there is so much work out there after Hurricane Ian. There is increased paperwork, increased emergency procurements, increased overall procurements in addition to our regular things. So again, our staff is continuing to work through that. In finance, we have hired some past employees as temporary help with the paperwork. Procurement is looking to fill their assistant buyer position. Basically, every facet of improvement or repairs for all divisions affects procurement and finance. So again, we're trying to move things through. It is a coordinated effort between finance, HR, through the insurance, FEMA, procurement, making sure that everyone is in the loop about every step in getting approvals as we move along to make sure we can collect from the insurance company as well as FEMA. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have City Clerk's Office.
Karen Smith, City Clerk for the record. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on business tax receipt renewals. We actually started renewing business tax receipts in approximately July of 2022, and we always have a big rush at the end of September. The deadline to submit your renewal payment is September 30th. So after the storm, obviously, we didn't have any activity for quite a while. However, to date, we've renewed 893 business tax receipts, which is a good indication of our businesses and their status right now. We still have 83 unrenewed businesses. We're not sure if that's because they're not in business anymore or they just haven't reopened yet. And we are making phone calls, and at this point now that we're 6 months or more down the road, we're getting code compliance to help us visit those businesses and see if they're really there. And if they are, then, and that's one thing we've been doing is waiving late fees for businesses. It doesn't amount to much money, but it gives the, the perception that, we are giving them a waiver of the business, the late fees, because we were able to do so under the governor's order. So we are going to be putting the late fees back in place, though, now that we've involved code compliance in our efforts. So that's all. Any questions about that?
How does that 83 that haven't renewed yet compare to a normal year? Is that very high? Is it average?
Our goal is always to have them all renewed by December, with the payment due date being September 30th. So we would like to have them done, but we sometimes we don't have them all done by then, and we get code compliance involved starting sometime in January, late January. So, and those fines, they only accumulate to 25%, and when you're talking about a $63 renewal fee, it doesn't amount to much.
I was just trying to get at how much business we've lost.
Correct, and at this point, we're still not sure because we have those 83, but with 893 renewed, I think we're doing pretty good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Fire.
Good afternoon, Holden Gibbs, Fire Chief. So we'll talk a little bit about post-hurricane planning. So we conducted an after-action review at the fire department to kind of look to see where we can improve on our next potential storm or upcoming. And one of the main things that the guys always said was, we need more manpower. So staffing levels were a big concern. So we did just complete our application again for the SAFER grant. We were unsuccessful last year, so we're keeping our fingers crossed for this next application period, which we should know by the end of September whether we're going to be successful in getting 6 additional firefighters kind of paid through FEMA. They provide 3 years of wages and benefits at 100%, so we're looking for that. We also looked at our SOG, our guidelines for hurricane, pre-hurricane, and one of the things that we noticed that we didn't have on there was to go out and meet with all of our mobile home parks to make sure that they understand the importance of evacuation. And we understand that there's still going to be people that are going to be resistant to it and not going to evacuate, so we've implemented a plan that we will actually meet with the presidents of those locations and try to get a number of residents that are planning on staying against our orders and try to get names and addresses for those locations that will help speed up the process of going back into those locations post-storm. So that was one of the things that we've done. We're also going to continue to review and update our Survey 123 process. We're going to make that an annual event that we do some training with that. It was very valuable in post-hurricane efforts to know exactly where the damage was, to know where we needed additional help, where signs were down, where power lines were down, where the big debris was accumulating, and also where we had a lot of damaged facilities or damaged structures that needed to be checked. So, Utilities Director mentioned that the water treatment plant lost its roof during the hurricane, so we are looking for alternative sites to house our first-in team, our police officers, firefighters, public works members that join that team, that are kept within the city or near the city, before, during, and after the storm, so that they can get in and do that first push to try to get those roadways opened. We had over 200 calls waiting in queue after Hurricane Ian that we needed to go out and check to see if people were in distress. They consisted of welfare checks, fire alarms, just different types of calls that we really need to get out there. And we can't service our citizens unless we can maneuver down the roadway. So that was a big thing, that being that far out at the water plant, we noticed that you have Shell Creek, which could flood. We had debris in the roadways. It makes it very difficult for us to even get back to the city. So we're looking at anything that would provide a storm surge greater than 8 feet would mean that we would need to evacuate our fire and police facilities. So we're looking at talking with the FedEx building out by the airport, Cheney Brothers, Anheuser-Busch, and even the FSW campus to see if we might have an alternate location to put our staff. One of the biggest needs that I think we've also come up with is an EOC within the city limits. So an emergency operations center to where we can actually get a lot of the work done, before, during, and after the storm within the city limits, that allows us to meet with all of our directors and their staff. We're just really cramped for space right now. We've utilized the Public Safety Building's training room as an EOC, and quickly realized that anytime we have outside agencies coming to assist, that we need to find a place that we can house them, that we can sleep them, and we just don't have that availability right now. So one of the things that we're going to be looking into is there's a vacant lot next to the Public Safety Building currently that is slated to have a car wash put on it. We've reached out to Sun & Suds to see if they were interested or would entertain selling that property, and they said that, we'll listen to an offer. So we're trying to get an appraisal done on that property to see what it was worth, to see if we could bring that to council and see if that would be a viable option in order to gain that real estate, rather than trying to expand out the back of the building or go up to a second level, which could be very costly, and we could possibly lose some of that parking spaces up at the public safety complex. To be able to expand would really make a flagship public safety building for our city. So we're really looking to move forward with that.
If I may, when we were in Tallahassee a couple of weeks ago, we had a meeting with Representative Mike Grant, and he flat out said that our request for legislative priority was stupid. And he said that he would never put forward any legislative recommendation for funding from the state for a facility to be located in a flood zone. So we cannot look to the state legislature for money, because he is the majority leader. He carries a huge stick when he walks, and there's little or no, in my opinion, there's little or no opportunity for us to get funding for that project from the state. So if we move forward in that location, we would have to do it on our own, whether it be 1% sales tax money or other. And what we did suggest is that we would not be opposed to considering an addition on the EOC facility on Airport Road if the county were to allow us to add on further to what they're planning on doing in addition to their space. And he said, well, that I would be interested in talking about. But absolutely 1,000,000% opposed to location at our facility.
Right. Well, and what we're kind of proposing as an EOC or an expansion to the public safety building is not just for, during that storm. We have limited space out at the county's EOC where we don't have enough space for staff members to meet and get plans in place for any of the, policing the city back into a good shape. So this building would include, conference rooms, office space, additional parking, a bunkhouse for sleeping for when you have PD officers where they bring their entire department in for 2-3 days at a time, 4 days at a time, and sometimes longer. They work alternating shifts. Well, you have to have a place to sleep those guys, and currently we don't. They're sleeping in hallways and offices, training room, wherever we can find space. So there'd be a multitude of reasons why we'd want to do this expansion. Yes, sir.
So as I said, I was out there with you guys and the police, and I personally witnessed what you guys went through, everything you just talked about as far as hot bunking and shifts and everything else. And I also can't begin to tell you how impressed I was. I think it was 3 o'clock in the morning, all the police and fire all geared up, waiting to go, just watching for 45 miles an hour. And the minute it hit, I think it was 45 miles an hour, the minute it hit, that place it was a tomb. And there was nobody there but me and my dogs and my wife. So I completely understand the need. I saw it, I witnessed it, I experienced it, so I understand.
Yeah. And what you saw was during the storm or immediately after. And what you probably didn't see was for the next week when we had Homestead in helping us out. Yeah. And they were a great help. But we had to have a place for them to take showers and restrooms and all those different necessities of life. So another consideration that we're looking at is fuel consumption. We have diesel tanks. We don't have any gasoline tanks in the city. I know that if we have smaller units, they don't have to be double wall contained, but we are going to be discussing the need for maybe a large-scale fuel dispensary at Public Works Yard for gasoline. Everyone experienced the shortage during the hurricane, sat through long lines, and it made it very difficult to keep all of our vehicles operational. So we're also looking to cross-train our personnel to operate heavy equipment. So these loaders and skid steers, and backhoes and whatnot, Public Works is stretched thin on a lot of things that they're doing. So we're going to cross-train some of the firefighters on how to operate some of those just to help with clearing roadways. And we're actually going to have like a two-man team to actually combination with FPL, because after this storm, it was different than Charlie. Charlie took out all the power within the city, and Ian took out about 90%. So we really didn't know what wire was live and what was dead. So we had to treat every down power line as if it was live. They flat out told us that we're not going to go and shut all the power off to the city. We are in recovery mode, and that was from minute one afterwards. So we had to have FPL crews out there with our crews before we could remove some of those trees to get down some of these roadways. So we're gonna team up with them a little earlier to help facilitate that in a quicker manner. So that in a nutshell is our post-hurricane planning. Any questions on that one?
Great, thank you.
And then I've got one more. For fire prevention, much like building, we've seen an increase in their activity. A lot of that is due to the 29% increase in call volume that the fire department has had. Our guys, the line guys and fire prevention combinedly do 1,500 annual life safety inspections through businesses and all multifamily homes. And because of the call volume increase that we've had over the last 2 years, a lot more of that has been pushed back over to fire prevention, which is basically fire marshal and one inspector currently. They've also had a lot of large-scale facilities with hurricane damage that they've had multiple inspections that they've had to go out to. And then with the new Parkside apartment complex down in Jones Loop area, I know they've been out there for over 20 inspections, site inspections. So that department right now for us is understaffed, and we will be coming forward to ask for an additional inspector in 2024 to help facilitate and move that department along so that we're not causing any delays or any new construction and permitting for Fireside.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have police. We're going to have to kind of move things along because we've got another meeting at 2 o'clock in Murdoch with the county commissioners. So if traffic is as bad today as it was yesterday, it's going to be a while to get there.
So be quick is what you're saying.
I'm not trying to rush it back.
We can do it.
I'm just looking at the clock and it's like, eh.
Chief Pam Davis, Punta Gorda Police, and I have Corporal Joe Trufran, our Marine officer. Really, everything Chief Gibbs said, 100% piggyback on that. Shelter was one of our major issues. But what has happened to us since the hurricane, sorry about that, is now we're realizing we still have a lot of vehicles that are damaged. A total of 13 vehicles were submitted to insurance due to the extensive damage. 1 vehicle was totaled. You can see the SUV up there was totaled. And we have another 8 vehicles that suffered minor damage, but we're not going to pursue repairs on that because it's so minor. But what's happened is Gettle is our contractor, and they have to do some sort of work with the federal to bring their federalized program up to date. And so we've been working with them. Our procurement manager's been actively working with them to try to get this up to date, but we can't get our repairs done until then because they're FEMA related and everything. So once that's done, then we can start getting that repaired. Our other just normal wear and tear on the vehicles have kind of been pushed back until that can be done. So it's really affecting our fleet. So that's been one of our issues right now. And then Corporal Trufan's going to talk about the derelict vessels that have resulted from the storm and what's going on with those.
Corporal Joe Trufan with the Punta Gorda Police Department Marine Unit. So immediately after the storm, our initial priority was assessment on what we had. Within the waters of the city, we used the Survey 123 app, and we wound up with 42 vessels assessed within city waters that met criteria for derelict. Many of those were removed relatively quickly by private contractors because a lot of them were insured boats. However, there were some that were uninsured that were left on the owners to have removed. Since the storm, the latest update from FWC, so what happened was FWC got involved and they basically said, we're going to take control of the derelict vessel situation because they worked together with Department of Emergency Management, and they had a direct line to FEMA for the funding for that process. So what we did was we kind of stepped aside on the administrative portion of derelict vessel investigations, let Fish and Wildlife and DEM control that, and then we assisted with any investigation needs they needed to try and figure out who owned the vessels, because they put together some systems in place to where they had a vessel turn-in program where an owner could essentially sign their vessel over to the state, and the state would say, okay, we'll take it as a result of the storm. So the latest update we've had, there are 35 vessels still within the waters of the county, leaving 8 of those vessels in the city. So we've got 5 still, this is per their database, there's 5 still in the Fisherman's Village, Gilchrist area. There's 2 in the PGI canal system and 1 in the BSI canal system awaiting removal. So we're talking 36 vessels removed in a matter of 6 months, which is pretty good. I mean, we were talking, it usually takes about 3 to 4 months to remove 1. So in the time that we've had and how many have been removed, they've been moving forward pretty quickly. I know it seems like it's been a long process, which it is, but it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's moving very well.
I think we're actually ahead of many others in our removal.
Yeah, so that's where we're at on the derelict vessel situation. I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody have.
Questions? Okay.
If I could we skip ID and just have HR go over the insurance part? The only reason I say ID is because in the other presentations, we hit on a lot of that with urban design and new software and different things that they're certainly busy and engaged in providing. But if, I know insurance, risk management and the insurance update is important, and then we can adjourn, if the mayor so desires.
A couple quick things.
Good afternoon. Jeff Payne, HR, and Courtney Buckles, our risk coordinator. So we'll be brief. Immediately after the storm, HR was working with the insurance company. We got a team.
Please step closer to the mic. Thank you.
I always do that, sorry. Immediately after the storm, we were working with the insurance company. We got a team of adjusters out here, inspectors, to look at the damage to city facilities, right? They did a pretty good job, pretty thorough investigation of the damages to the facilities. So we have that documentation that we're using to create the scopes to now repair those facilities. We have received some funds already, and Courtney's got some interesting statistics that she's going to share with you about the extent of the damages.
Good afternoon. Courtney Buckles, Risk Coordinator. We had 156 assets that sustained damage during the storm, assets being vehicles, trailers, vessels, facilities, et cetera, and estimated losses at greater than $10 million currently. 39 of the 116 lift stations throughout the city were damaged. 29 of the 243 vehicles that make up the city's fleet were damaged. 1 vehicle is considered a total loss. Every park was affected, and the only city building that was not damaged was the old fire station 2.
The one that we're not using. Yep.
Built like a rock. We've received 1 advance payment in the amount of $2.8 million in December of 2022 from the insurance company. Excuse me. We're anticipating another $1 million advance payment.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will just mention with all of this, some of the actions we've had to take were under the state of emergency, things like debris removal that we couldn't just allow to languish. We had to take action on while we were still under the state of emergency, so that's why you see some of this moving forward more quickly.
And thank you to everyone on the staff for everything that you are doing to get the city back on track. Really, sincerely, truly appreciated by all of us. It's a lot of work, and I know you've been working morning, noon, and night. You're answering emails every day of every week, every hour of the day, and it is really appreciated that you have so much of a vested interest in the city as we do. So thank you. Okay, the last agenda item is the joint meeting with the county commissioners. And I guess all we needed to do was just, we had a resolution we were asked to sign at the last meeting, just announcing officially that we have a meeting scheduled with them today. They also did the same at their level at the county, and that meeting will be at 2 o'clock today, and all people are invited to attend if you so wish to. We have no other board or committee reports. City manager, do you have anything?
No, thank you. We'll adjourn till 2 o'clock, and then we will have discussion items. This was on there in case anyone had any questions about any of the agenda items that we'll be discussing with the county.
City attorney?
Mayor, real quick, I apologize for being late and request that I could be excused from the meeting, attending to a family medical issue.
Yep.
Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. City clerk, anything additional? Okay.
I did want to mention that our last joint meeting was January 30th, 2014 with the county. So.
Okay. All right. Under council member comments, I'm going to be very brief, and I'm not going to give you the whole report that I was going to give you. I've already mentioned we have the meeting scheduled with the county at 2 o'clock. The only other thing I'm going to mention today is that Mr. Council has resigned from the CRA. He, as you know, his wife passed away right before Christmas, and he has elected to move up to West Virginia to be close to his family. So he has resigned from all of his board and committee appointments, CRA included, so we'll be looking to fill that seat at some point in the very near future. We wish him well, and he's certainly been a huge asset to the city and the county, so we're going to miss him a lot. Yep. Secondly, there are a lot of issues that are going on at the state legislature that I think are probably going to warrant letters from the city to support or not support various things that are bills before the House and the Senate. I just want to make you all aware that there may be letters that we are going to need to be sending, and some of them may have to be done before the next meeting on April 19th. I hope that you all trust Mr. Murray and myself to only send letters that are absolutely relevant to the city and which would be detrimental to the city if those bills are passed. So does anybody have a problem with that? Okay, because we sent letters last year. I just wanted to make you aware that that is something that could happen, and that's all I have for today.
It happens quickly.
Things are going very quickly. They're talking about the possibility of having, they might have even already come up with a early version of the budget, so we're kind of trying to keep in touch. Our lobbyists are giving us regular updates on all the bills that are going on up there, so I'll keep you aware via the city manager if there are any letters that have to be sent and what they're relevant to, what bills they're pertaining to. But there's just an awful lot of things happening that they keep chipping away at home rule, and it's very concerning. So, okay. Comments? Mr. Kuharski, Mr. Drybird? Nothing. Mrs. Luckett?
Nothing.
Actually, I do have one. I would like to suggest for a future agenda, and obviously this is not urgent, but I think sometime this year, that we as a council review all of our ground leases. We have a number of not-for-profits who have ground leases. We heard from one today. They all have kind of different terms, and they're all $1 a year. So I just would like us to talk philosophically about how we approach that going forward. And I think just having a list of these are all of the properties that fall in that category.
Okay. Very good. Okay, there being no further business, we are adjourned.